art can get inside of you. It can infect you. It can move you.
When we talk about art, what we're talking about is the creative act that brings joy.
I am an artist because it allows me to root myself in present time physical experience. It's a kind of dreaming with your eyes open that demands complete immersion.
The medical practice was combined or merged with art. So to my surprise, he was singing for them and they were singing together. And then suddenly, actually, I joined them and he combines that art with modern medicine.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing, Gillian?
Good, thanks. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, great to be with you.
I think I should introduce you first. This is Christopher Bailey, who is the art and health lead at the World Health Organization based in Geneva, Switzerland. He has a newly established program that looks at the research agenda around health benefits of the arts in everyday life and as an instrument in the field.
Well, thank you, Gillian. You're very kind. And you're very kind to be joining us in this first session of Healing Arts Week London, where we're going to be talking about what healing power of arts means to us through stories and through some exciting guests who will be coming shortly. And throughout the week, we'll be hearing from a cultural coalition of organizations and individuals, from researchers to policymakers, from artists to art therapists, and of course, from patients themselves, reflecting on what they feel the healing power of art means to them from their perspective. And I hope everyone will check the website and see which sessions they're most interested in and maybe tune in for all of it, because it's going to be very exciting.
That's one of the things that I'd love for us to talk about today, as to how the arts can have impact and is as vital to communities and to society as anything else.
For our purposes, when we talk about art, what we're talking about is the creative act that brings joy. It's not about necessarily an artiste over here. And if someone is professionally good at it, they become an artist. But anyone practices art. If you cook, if you sing, if you play an instrument, if you tell a story, that is creativity. And I think that's particularly important in this time. When you have professionals that have learned advanced technique that can do that on a profound level in a community to large groups of people, that does serve a real benefit to the health of a society, to the health of a community.
That's probably a good segue into Healing Arts London. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
It started actually about a year ago when we were organizing this concert with Lady Gaga, who was nice enough to curate this concert together at home that was around the world.
Hi, this is Lady Gaga, and today I'm so happy that we are one world together at home. I feel very honored to be a part of the World Health Organization and global citizen in the fight against COVID-19 and raising money for the Solidarity Response Fund.
In that concert, we were able to, at an early phase of the pandemic, not only help encourage the sense of solidarity that we're all in this together, but also the key early messages of hand hygiene, of social distancing, of staying at home, of supporting the frontline workers.
Your grace, give us faith so we'll be saved.
Over time, we thought, well, we've engaged the pop music community. What are the other communities that we could engage as well? And when Christie's approached us about looking at the art world, we thought, oh, that could be interesting. And so with the WHO Foundation, they've actually offered a year-long campaign where in the various cities that they're having these auctions to have a section where donated art can be sold off to support COVID response. But in this case, with a special attention to what the arts can do to help support communities from a mental health point of view in particular. Healing Arts London activation that's happening this week is the first one. The auction will be Thursday. A number of wonderful works are going to be put on the auction block. Or even if it's not your thing in terms of purchasing the art, you may want to come online and just enjoy the experience of it if you've never seen one of these things before, because it's a form of theater as well.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
The auction's on Thursday, and I know that there are some other events that are happening throughout this week, this conversation being the first of many.
Tomorrow, Tuesday, we're going to have something called the Artist House Calls, where we're going to go to the artist's place of work. And that could be a studio. In one case, there's a project called the Hospital Rooms, where we go into the wards of hospitals and see public art. And even an arts project in the Pentonville prison. On the Wednesday, the first session at 2 o'clock UK time is asking the question, does art heal? We will have researchers who will talk about the evidence base, but we'll also have policymakers. At about 4 o'clock UK time, there's a session called Patterns in the Fog, which is about dementia. And my idea there was to do sort of a deep dive into a particular, in this case, neurological condition. We'll have neurologists, we'll have psychologists, we'll have pharmacists, we'll have arts therapists, and we'll have people who have Alzheimer's talking about their experience. Thursday is the auction. Friday, we're going to have a session which is all about artists themselves in communities around the world talking about their community art projects that are there to support the mental health of communities now. They are amongst the beneficiaries of the auction itself, so it's a way of hearing firsthand where this money is actually going to.
And is that something that would also lead to policy in some way?
Yes, there's a policy component, there's a storytelling component, and a fundraising component. Part of making the policy case is saying, here is the evidence that we're not only preserving a culture, we're actually improving the health of a community. In the fall of 2019, our Copenhagen office in WHO came out with a report on the evidence base for the health benefits of the arts. And it's a broad review, but it was the first attempt by WHO to actually measure and to say, what do we mean, that arts can heal? And our definition of health is not merely the absence of disease. It is the attainment of the highest level of physical, mental, and social well-being. And if that's the case, then certainly art has a very positive and active role to play in it.
We have Anthony Gormley coming on.
How are you doing, Gillian?
I'm good. So nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. You look good. Where are you?
Thank you. I'm in Prague in a hotel.
I've done the odd show there. The last show I did was in St. Agnes's convent.
Are you in the studio right now? Is that what I
No,
suggested?
I'm in the studio. Yeah, there's not much to show. Here are some recent works come back from China, and I'm making a few little maquettes there. But the main work is all happening behind me through that wall.
Right.
But it's been a funny year. I mean, in many ways, it's been a blessing. I don't know what it's been like for you guys. I mean, I think for musicians and actors and dancers, it's been absolutely dire. But for artists, we're just doing what we do normally, and without the kind of all that hassle of doing shows.
The film and television community seems to be ticking along. They seem to be able to establish the effective protocols to keep moving forward.
We're not doing commercial shows at all, but I consign enough work to the galleries, and actually they've sold. I mean, it hasn't stopped. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary.
I know, it's extraordinary.
That people who don't see the work part with significant sums just because of the impossibility of travel. And anyway, I mean, that's kept us going. But we're working on 3 museum shows that are going to open. So the next one is in Singapore at the National Gallery. And that will open in May, whether I can go or not. So there's a lot of time spent like this, talking to people who are gonna, install the work, who maybe don't know it as well as we do. Anyway, we'll see how that goes.
You've very kindly donated a piece of the auction that's on Thursday, is that right?
I have, yes.
What does the healing power of art mean to you as a practicing artist?
I am an artist because it allows me to root myself in present time physical experience. It's a kind of dreaming with your eyes open that demands complete immersion. And that is incredibly therapeutic. Somehow going into an emergent landscape that is being made as you work, but it isn't you that's working. It is something that is arising that you are both participator and witness of. Yeah. And it's just, I think that is healing. I mean, I'm making it sound mysterious. It isn't. It's just, art is a place that I think you can go to as a viewer, but you certainly live in as a maker.
What kind of things have you heard from viewers over the years in terms of the impact that your work has had specifically on them in regards to healing?
Certainly another place, the work in the sea on this big beach outside Liverpool. I've received extraordinary testimonials, really, of people that have suffered loss of a loved one. The feeling that they have had, that their experience of, in a way, something being very tangible and very close being taken away by time.
I've been fascinated by this with someone like Bryce Marteen and the time that he spends working on a single canvas. And as an observer, it feels that I'm absorbing his experience with the canvas.
What you've just said is about making a place. It's a net that sort of, allows you to rest in it. Your spirit can kind of dwell in it, find support in it, be, in a way, kind of held in it. And I think that is what art can do. Art and healing are completely entwined.
Sometimes people, particularly in the science community, might be somewhat dismissive or not understand the healing ability of art. And they might dismiss it as recreational. And I say, well, listen to that word, recreational. we recreate. Is that not healing?
In our kind of Protestant work ethic, late capitalist kind of mode, you should be working, not playing.
Precisely.
Recreation is play. Play is being released from all whether it's your superego or whether it's your boss at work. I mean, the kind of hierarchies of whatever it is that forces us to do stuff that is not natural.
I have a friend who, aged, I think 55, went back to school to become an art therapist. And one of the things that she does with some of her clients is this box that is, I don't know what it's referred to in that field, but it's a sandbox essentially. And within the sandbox, she has a wall full of items that can be, little tchotchkes, little horses and people and symbols that might represent something in one's life. Using these images, someone who is not very good at connecting with their feelings, things start to come to the surface and are revealed in this sandbox just by the act of playing and being creative with them in this space. The impact of that play and creativity is unbelievably profound for the humans who are engaging in it for the first time, because they're learning something about themselves that they didn't have access to before.
It reminded me of one of my favorite quotes from Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, who said, "Loneliness is not the absence of people. Loneliness is the inability to express what matters to you most." And I think part of what art can do is help you find that expression of what matters to you most, whatever that might be. Or if you can't, the artist helping guide you on that journey.
The galleries and museums have been closed, so we're no longer the passive recipient of huge blockbuster shows. What's happened? The artists have become enablers, encouraging others to make things. And we've got now this community of participating people who never thought of themselves as artists, who are now, around the kitchen table making stuff, doing drawings, making clay and plasticine things. And suddenly, I think, well, we don't know quite what the art world is going to be like post-COVID, but it's evident that we can't all be flying around, from one art fair to another.
I couldn't agree with you more about reducing the jet setting, whether that's in the art world or any business environment. Here in Geneva, you can actually see the Alps. The sky is cleared from the reduced air travel. We're not taking care of this place. And maybe artists have a role to play in that story too.
I couldn't agree more. I think, the silver lining of COVID is that we can change when we really listen and the circumstances force it on us. We can change radically. All our needs to, in a way, escape ourselves and constantly go somewhere else or do something else, have been confounded by this time, where we've actually had to live with the people that we are, either married to or live in houses with, and do it in a way that is much closer, perhaps, to 12,000 years ago than to the last 20. And all kinds, I think, all kinds of, in a way, revised consciousness is the result. People sit around and enjoy cooking things together. Conversations that happen when you're, shelling peas or chopping vegetables. And that's a creative act. I keep saying that, people are always saying, "Oh, I'm not an artist, I I wouldn't know what to do with. The fact is that we make decisions every single moment of the day about where we're going to walk, how we're going to put food on a plate. I mean, really serious aesthetic decisions about what goes next to what. And I take a lot of care about where a chair goes in relation to a table. That celebration, in a way, in the extended but also collective body of where we live. I think that has completely changed the synapses of our brain.
There is the flip side of it, which is, mental health issues have absolutely increased during this time, as much as we may be learning things about ourselves and applying ourselves creatively. And it makes me wonder in this conversation, what if it was actually a part of our society already, so that there was funding extended to people in such circumstances that they could allow themselves to take the time to be creative in a day.
We started something about 2 months ago called the Great Big Art Exhibition, having had these wonderful rainbows in everybody's windows supporting the National Health Service and the wonderful work that they've done. We've just encouraged everybody to use their front gardens, their balconies, their windows as a place to express to their neighbors and the street what's going on inside their houses, and turn, in a way, every street in villages, towns, and cities into a place of creative celebration. It was artists, but it was artists and institutions working together. I think we can tell or encourage each other to be creative. It was lovely talking to you both.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
We actually have Dr. Tedros, our Director General, waiting in the wings here.
Hi,
Gillian.
pleasure to meet you.
I know you, you don't know me.
I think I know you a little bit.
Thank you so much for your commitment. I know you're involved in many initiatives or rights-based activities, and I'm very happy. It's not just your profession, but what you do for children, what you do for women, what you do for the environment, for our planet. That's very, very important. By the way, many people don't see that part of your life. They only see you in the acting, in the profession. And they should know that you're very busy with supporting many people, actually.
Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate that.
And thank you to Chris for bringing us together. He's a pathfinder, by the way, in our organization, bringing art and health together. And he can tell you his own story, but he has a very, inspiring story, actually, that I was very proud to be part of. Chris, thank you so much for bringing us together.
Well, thank you, Dr. Tedros. Gillian, I think what he's referring to is when I started to go blind, there were many people, including health professionals, that told me that I should take disability, that I should leave work. And Dr. Tedros actually encouraged me and supported me to stay. What we try to do at WHO, and Dr. Tedros tries to do this every day, is rather than look at people's deficits, what's wrong with them, we look at what abilities do they have, how can they contribute to society, and frankly, that's our definition of mental health. This is the WHO definition of mental health, a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community.
Dr. Tedros, is there been a time in your life that art has positively impacted your frame of mind?
You know, I'd be happy to tell you about the power of art. Actually, I observed in relation to mental health. I was visiting Tonga, it was August 2019, and visiting a hospital, and I met a physician, a psychiatrist called Dr. Mapa. They told me that he has a special program. And I was very much interested and went to see him. And he combined, then in his practice, I saw that in his room, in his section of the hospital, with many people came to have a session with him. And in that session, I have seen how the medical practice was combined or merged with art. So to my surprise, he was singing for them and they were singing together. And then suddenly, actually, I joined them and he combines that art with modern medicine. I promised to the doctor that we should replicate in other places.
Has there been a time when you have been profoundly affected by art?
Just before the first pandemic, there was a play that I saw at the Young Vic called Fairview that was by Jackie Sibley's Drury, and it completely floored me and taught me things that I had never even considered before about systemic, societal, and personal subconscious racism. And certainly I've been moved by film and deeply affected by more conventional art. During my hiatus while I was shooting The X-Files, when I was doing press in Europe, we were in Venice and we had just arrived on the train and we'd gone the wrong day. We got confused and we ended up arriving and not having a hotel room to stay in. A woman who was a fan handed us a pamphlet for art that was being exhibited by an Aboriginal artist. Then we were in one of the squares in Venice one afternoon, and my husband at the time said to me, you know, there's that man sitting over there at that table is the artist whose picture was on the back of the pamphlet. And so we went to go talk to him, and he invited us to go to the gallery. It was a Sunday, and the gallery was actually in a church. And I found myself in front of a painting. The painting that I'm looking at is completely abstract, and immediately started to cry. And the artist came up behind me. He said that that particular piece that I was looking at was a painting of a massacre that had taken place in a village where the entire village was killed. Art can get inside of you. It can infect you. It can move you.
You know, it's so moved actually by the stories you just told us, especially the massacre in a village, the art that really represented that and how that really affected you. When there is a massacre or big conflict, you know, the whole society can experience mass trauma. There are many studies, by the way, that show that during the Second World War and for many years after that, because of the impact of the Second World War, mass trauma was documented in many, many countries. And now, during COVID, that's exactly what's going to happen. For many years to come, the current pandemics will have impact on the society at large. I'm saying this from my own experience also. I come from a country that was getting into conflict from time to time. And growing up, it was in the middle of a civil war. And some of the leading psychiatrists in Ethiopia actually have documented mass trauma in areas where there was serious conflict, especially in the northern part of Ethiopia, including actually in the current area where there is conflict in Tigray, where I come from. And seeing that, and now seeing COVID, how it's affecting each and every individual on earth, you can imagine its magnitude. So maybe a challenge to you, Gillian, and your colleagues is, how can we use art to address mass trauma?
One of the things that we're trying to do with this campaign is to do precisely that, to fund groups that work in these areas. I've been blessed in working with some artists, for instance, a woman who works with other women who have experienced sexual violence, particularly in conflict zones, and using art to allow them to regain possession of expression of their own identity, which had been violated, and to learn how to paint themselves, to learn how to create an image of themselves, of the person that they truly are, not defined by the event that happened to them. And it's incredibly moving to see that work. I performed in a piece at the Wellcome Collection in London. And one of the things that I do before I like to walk in the city or maybe catch a concert, and I was in Trafalgar Square, and I wanted to go to a lunchtime concert at St. Martin in the Fields there to relax. And it was the first time I'd been in that square since I'd lost my vision. And I became hopelessly disoriented. I got confused. I began to feel my heart beating in my chest. I was sweating. I began to have this panic attack. And I ended up on the wrong side of the square in front of the National Gallery. And I was very upset because actually I'd been avoiding museums since I lost my sight because I didn't want to see these paintings that had given me so much joy corrupted, polluted, unable to experience their beauty. But I went inside anyway just to get away from the crowd. And I found myself in the gallery of the Turner Seascapes, and I was looking at them and began to recognize these paintings because I couldn't see them very well. And I began to realize that these seascapes with the fog and the storms and the ocean was how I see the world now with my terminal glaucoma. And for the first time, it began to occur to me that the way I see the world could be beautiful. And I, at that moment, began to taste the salt spray, and I realized that salt spray wasn't a painting, it was my tears that were pouring down my cheeks. And that somehow, even though I had learned to adapt with my adaptive technology and the cane and all of that, and was coping with all of these feelings and managing the sense of loss, it was the first time that I actually felt, rather than coping with a loss, maybe what I was experiencing was beautiful in a strange and different way. And there's something about that triangulation between the artist, creator, the object, and the viewer that can create a kind of a navigation in one's life to find a path, to become in charge of your own story, your own narrative again, where you're not just a passive recipient of misfortune, but can write your own narrative. And now, as my vision is deteriorating, I I no longer define myself by that loss. I embrace who I am now and the abilities that I have. So for instance, you voluntarily close your eyes when you drink a glass of red wine. Just as you willingly close your eyes to better embody a piece of music. Just as you willingly close your eyes to trace the gentle slope of a lover's forearm, so too do I embrace the closing of my eyes to better share this moment with you. And I think that's what Anthony was talking about when he said, in that creative act, finding that present moment. To not be burdened by the anxiety of an uncertain future or a past that still plagues you, but to find that moment in the present where you simply are and you create with others. That to me is the healing power of art. Maybe we could show this short video that we have of the Hospital Rooms project of artists working in a mental health ward and creating art together.
Art is so important in stimulating that sense of wanting to go on, because there's so many times when you feel like you don't want to go on, that you could just happily slip away. And that's a really scary thought, but it's a really real thought.
I think the work of Hospital Rooms is really important because what it really is saying is that there should be no barriers to culture, and there should be no barriers to people experiencing and living with art. So
going into hospital, you're massively aware of your surroundings because you're hyper alert, and the surroundings have such a significant impact on you and can be hugely terrifying because they're so stark and it feels so sterile. It's not an environment to feel any positivity.
It's just so good to see people creating through joint work, because I think it's only by relationships with common meaning that we make progress as human beings, and there's a lot of creativity here. And it's really good to see that being used, because so much we function on what people can't do. And this is really about what people can do. And there's some genius here too.
The piece that we did with Mark Titchener was amazing because it was so collaborative, and it showed that even when you've got many unwell people together, you can actually come together to do something really amazing, and you each have a part of that puzzle to put in, and you will create that jigsaw together.
And the idea of beautiful things is still really important. And if we don't provide that, then what are we saying to people? You deserve a scruffy room to be in for several years? I think not.
I think that's a nice concrete example. It's compassion. And I think it's the common DNA that art has with medicine, and in fact religion. Because what is compassion? If you look at the Latin root of the word, it's compassio. It means struggle together.
I'm reading a wonderful book at the minute by Dr. Rachel Clark, Dear Life. And it's about compassion and kindness in palliative care medicine. And in the hospice ward that she has started up, it reminds me very much of that video that you just showed, just in terms of the attention to detail that they put into the actual environment, the attention to detail they put into the activities that that the individuals who end up in that hospice get to participate in, really care about how you would like the end to come and how you would like that experience to be. And so it's a really profoundly beautiful, but it reminds me of that video and what you were just saying about the impact of compassion and kindness on people, you know, who are experiencing, whether it's mental health or physiological health issues at any given time.
I was thinking about this notion of how, as a performer, as an artist, you can affect your audience in ways that you never imagined or didn't expect. Has that ever happened to you in your performances, Gillian? Have you gotten any feedback from your invisible audience out there about work that you've done that moved them, that might have benefited them in their mental health or in their lives?
When I first started to do the X-Files, and just by playing Dana Scully, who was a professional, capable, intelligent woman, a doctor and a scientist, who was, you know, essentially equal to her FBI partner. Women were finally seeing someone that resembled them in smarts and ambition, and suddenly they believed that they could and should reach for that it was okay to reach for that. And so to me, that is finding meaning. And they found meaning enough in Scully to apply for STEM education and occupation, and it became known as the Scully effect. But then also, you know, there was the fact that when I started, you know, we got tens of thousands of fan mail. And I also received letters from men and women and boys and girls saying that Scully was helping them to deal with challenging personal circumstances, that just observing this woman and how she dealt with situations was helping them, whether their struggle was with addiction or eating disorders or other mental health challenges, abusive relationships, terminal health scares. Scully also went through her own battle with cancer, and many people shared with me that seeing her on screen struggle with that, and be strong through it, and you know, courageously face it, and face her fears around it and around mortality and sickness, helped them through their own experience. So I've, you know, very much had experience of impact that a character can have, or that my work in the arts can have on individuals and on individuals' mental and emotional health.
Well, the other thing that struck me about the X-Files too, and many people, is this wonderful dichotomy relationship, yin yang, between you and the Mulder character, between science represented by your background and I won't say artistic, but more intuitive worldview represented by Mulder.
You're absolutely right, and it occurs to me that that you know, speaks so appropriately to what you're attempting to do in unifying the arts and sciences in this conversation, is that their differing views were exactly what made the show. You know, that tension there is exactly what people were tuning in for. They worked in tandem, and you know that there is beauty in and creativity in science, and there is beauty and there is creativity in art.
What's nice about that is that yes, it created tension and conflict, but part of what made that show beautiful and work was the fact that you ended up being such a good team. You worked with each other rather than against each other. And particularly these days where we have such polarization in our society, where we talk at each other, we talk over each other, we don't listen. To have two characters like that have such different worldviews actually listen and respect to each other and find a way forward together, that was unusual. And sadly is even more unusual today, I think. Thank you very much, Gillian, for sharing this conversation with us. And I would like to thank some of the artists and partners that we're working with this week, primarily the artists that have donated artworks for the auction on Thursday at Christie's: Anthony Gormley, William Kentridge, Martin Creed, Ragnar Hjartansson, Yoshitomo Nara, and others. The other partners who have collaborated with us this week, beginning with our producer, CULTURUNNERS, as well as our auction partner, Christie's, our media partners, the Art Newspaper and Vox Media, our foundation partners, the WHO Foundation and the Blessed Foundation, and our program partners, the Tate, UCL, Castello de Rivoli, Hospital Rooms, Community Jamil, and Pentonville Prison. Thank you all very much, and we're really excited about the week.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Chris. And thank you, Dr. Tedros. This was really enjoyable. I'm very glad you asked me to do this. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
I think we're going to leave everybody now with a Martin Creed artwork. Everything is going to be all right, as a reminder to stay creative and positive.
I'm the one for you, I'm your two. You're the one for me, you're my three. We make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You make me laugh, you make me cry, you make me try, you make me sigh, you make me lie, you make me buy. You're my sign, you're my time, you're my rhyme, you're my 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.